AI exists because of squids. Yeah, squids. Well, more specifically, this thing right here, this giant axon. I think what it does, from what I read, is it helps the squids propulse themselves through the water. But either way, it's because of this thing right here. So in the 1950s, two scientists called Hodgkin and Huxley recreated the neuron. And they did this by measuring out certain electrical properties from the axon. And they did different tests, whatever, but they were essentially able to design a circuit that is equivalent to a neuron. Close enough, at least. And the circuit looks like this. So we have a capacitor and 3 resistors all in parallel. And this means that we are able to create equations that will model and tell us how this circuit will behave. And if we can tell how the circuit behaves, well, now we know how the neuron will behave. So this actually worked. So they were able to recreate the action potential. They were able to find out the voltage thresholds, threshold for current, all this good stuff. And this was known as the birth of computational neuroscience. And this is where AI stems from. So if you can think of different neurons, we throw a bunch of neurons wherever we want, and we essentially pinpoint where we want to connect them. So neuron 1 to neuron 2, neuron 2 to neuron 3, so on and so forth. We can do it that way. And we can represent this as a mathematical matrix, it's called. And because us as the developers are able to manipulate the connections, we can also manipulate how the connections will behave. So when we think of intelligence, we can think of the connections and how the connections are being changed as this network of neurons are constantly firing or not firing, how it's all going to behave. And this is essentially what AI is, essentially. So a bunch of artificial neurons firing together, learning and recreating things that, you might want to recreate. So that's basically where AI comes from. It's from squids because they have a giant neuron in their head.